Okay folks, what we have here is Puerto Rico. This is a game of resource manipulation that is actually one of the coolest resource manipulation games that I've ever played. I was shocked to find out that in my discussions with some of the people who play here that they've never played this game. Most of them never even heard of it. This game has been around for a little while, and it definitely has been on my radar for some time. So let me get through a little bit of a walkthrough here, see if it's something that you guys are interested in. We're trying to make this a league game. This is totally in the realm of league play because the strategy is going to be altered by how it's played. There's lots of ways to block people from doing things. If you find out a strategy that's winning, people can easily get in your way in this game. This game is brilliantly built that way. So this is a Rio Grande game, so anybody who's familiar with Rio Grande games knows that they kind of have this mechanism that's, it never leaves anybody kind of out in the cold, everybody can play. So how this game plays is like this. There's jobs available. There's things like captain and prospector and mayor and settlers and builders and different jobs you can do. And when you take a job, like builder for instance, you take the card, put it next to you, and what that builder would do is give you the ability to build a building for 1 point less than everybody else. So everybody will get a chance to build, but you will have the benefit of having 1 point less or 1 coin less for the building that you're going to build. And you'll do that. And you'll build whatever building you want to build, and then everybody else can also do it. Now, all of the jobs are like that. So if somebody does that wants to sell goods, then they get the benefit of being able to be first. And they can get an extra doubloon, extra coin for when they sell, but everybody else can still sell. They just don't get the extra little push of the extra coin. So everybody will play a job, and then they'll all go back into the job pool, and everybody will get a chance to play again. Now the neat thing about this is that if you think there's a job that people really don't want, after everybody's played, if they didn't take, say, prospector or mayor, well, those cards are going to get a coin on them to make them a little bit more enticing to play. Sometimes people will play those just to get the coins. So you play the prospector just to get the extra coins off the top. So there's a nice little incentive on this game built in so that all of the jobs will get turned over at some point. At some point, it's way too rich to be able to pass up, so a lot of people do that. And then the governor will switch around, and whoever's next will play next, and then there'll be the first draw on the jobs, everybody else will do the job, and then it'll switch around to the next player. Now the reason you're doing all this is that you have this little chunk of land in Puerto Rico, and it has a building space for your town, and it has grasslands or plantation lands for where you can build plantation stuff. The plantations in this game include things like corn and indigo and coffee, tobacco, and sugar. Now, all of those products are good. They all have a special little thing they can do. Like corn is just corn. You put corn on your plantation area, and then you get a worker on your plantation, and it'll produce corn, which everybody can follow that. The struggles come in is that corn is not very valuable. So it doesn't give you a whole lot of gold or doubloons when you're selling it, but you can also sell products for victory points, which is kind of the goal of most games. The drawback is that because you're not making coins off of corn, that it's not going to help you buy buildings in the future. So it's a nice boost for points, for victory points, but it's not really the kind of the 1-2 punch that you're looking for in a game like this. What you want is things like tobacco, for instance. So if you have tobacco in your field, when you have a little worker on your tobacco farm, then you're actually producing tobacco plants, but you're not processing it. What you need is a building to be in your town that is tobacco related. So this is a tobacco storage building that you also have to have manned in order to get a tobacco processed. Tobacco can give you good coins, you can get good money from it, but you have to have the mechanisms in place to make that work. Now the other drawbacks in this game is that at the trader house will only buy products if they don't already have the product. So if somebody has put a tobacco in the trading house, well then all of the other 4 spaces have to be filled with something other than tobacco. Now that sounds like it's a big blockade, but there's other things you can do. If you have, for instance, bought an office and placed that office in your town and get that manned, well then you have the ability to circumvent that. So if somebody has built tobacco in the trading house and you have tobacco that you're trying to sell, well the office building allows you to bypass that one product per trading house rule. So you'll actually be able to throw that other tobacco in your trading house and be able to sell it because you have office workers that know how to do that. So there's little back doors on a lot of this stuff. Another downside of things is that you're not allowed to basically store products. So if you have built a bunch of tobacco plants and you have all this tobacco here but don't have anywhere to put it, and somebody does a trade, well, you can lose all this stuff. It can go bad. You're only allowed to store one. So if this gets burnt up and gets thrown back, you could just be out. It's like the tobacco went bad, it went stale. So you have to plan for that kind of stuff. There's back doors to that as well. You have warehouses that allow you to store multiple things. So you can not just storing one, you might be able to store multiple, and then be able to trade them on the next turn. So you can actually get around losing your products that way. So all these little buildings give you the ability to do that kind of stuff. Really cool systems in place. The strategy is always going to change because there's different buildings that do different things. That all cost different amounts. So you might want to have a wharf for a harbor, and it might benefit you. You might not have the coins for it. So you have to balance a lot of things in here. And then there's these side buildings that are really expensive, but they give you victory points. They also take up space. So if as the game goes on, if you have built one or two of these things, well, you don't have space for a lot of things. So you've taken up a lot of space in your town. Maybe you've built a lot of crops, and now you don't have any space for crops anymore. This game's got a really cool balance to it. So it's just like in a lot of other games that I'm really fond of, is that if you get too good at this game, you can actually be self-detrimental. You can actually hurt yourself doing it, or taking up too much space, or trying to build on ships that you're not ready for because you're so far ahead. Well, then you've built on things and then you get stuck. You're stuck in this quagmire waiting for other people to catch up, and while they're catching up, they're beating you in points. So this game's got a really neat balance in it. We're going to play this game as a league, and I think the only reason that I really want to do this as a league is because most of my gamers who regularly game haven't seen this game. It's really shocking to me. This game is a really well-built game. Just like most of I don't know if I've found a Rio Grande game that I'm not happy with. They're pretty good. And they kind of go under the radar for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe it's the art. Maybe it looks a little too 1970s, could be. But I'm always a fan of mechanisms, and the mechanism of this game is very well built. I was introduced this by, I have to throw a shout out to Andrew and Carrie. They introduced me to this game a few years back, and I've always liked playing it since. I always look for people who can play it or have the ability to put it all together. This is going to be a good league, another well-built league, another balanced-able, so we're never going to know who's going to be winning until the very end. This is going to be a solid game. Oh, the quarries, for instance. That's the one thing that I was forgetting to mention. So if you have a quarry and you've put it into your town and you get a man on it, then the buildings will cost one less. And if you have multiple quarries, then it'll cost multiples less. Now the buildings at the top, if you can see this, there are stage 1 buildings, stage 2 buildings, stage 3 buildings. You can only use quarries for the number that are at the top. So you can only use one quarry for these buildings because the cost value would be like 2, so you can't just get it for free. Level 2 building, or these cost 4, 5, and 6, but 2 quarries is the most you can use. So they're still going to cost you some coins. Kind of a neat mechanism. It's nice to have that backup for when you're doing building. Yeah, I'm a big fan of this game. I'm looking forward to seeing if we can get a nice solid chunk of people that want to give this a go. Nobody's played it, so if you're a brand new player to this game, which most people are going to be, everybody's going to be new to this game. Nobody's played this in this store at all. I just brought these in specifically for this reason. All right, that's all. Thanks.